Alright guys, so the very first exercise that you're going to be completing here is the item adjustment for the baby girl image. Essentially all we want to do is we want to change her blanket from one color to another. So first thing we got to do is we got to open that image. I'm not at the school right now, I'm at my computer at home, so I am not connected to the network like you guys. Where you find your files are going to be different, so just keep that in mind. But I'm still going to open. Um, I already had this open, so it just happens to be here. Gonna select my baby girl, open, here we go, picture baby girl. First thing I'm gonna do before I even get started in here is I'm gonna zoom in. I got all this workspace around here, might as well use it. It's kind of silly to have such a big screen and only be using a teeny tiny bit of it. So, first thing that we want to do is, like I said, we're gonna change this bottom pink blanket, we're gonna make it into a blue blanket. We're gonna leave this blanket alone on the top. Um, just one thing I want to point out, if you guys notice this like fuzzy, glitching, kind of like glowy weirdness going on, I just want to point out that is an effect of rasterized image being either shrunk or enlarged. Uh, it is not from us zooming in or zooming out. Photoshop would not. It'll show you the pixels exactly as they are on the saved image. So what that tells me is before I even got this image, before I downloaded it, somebody on the internet, wherever I got this from, actually had manipulated the size of this image, probably shrunk it down. And what that is the computer compressing the pixel information and just trying to take a guess at where some of the lightness and darknesses and things like that should be. So you get that weird kind of glowing in some sections. Just be aware of that if you ever end up shrinking down raster images or even worse, growing them. All right. But for us, we are changing colors. So in order to do that, we're going to do two things. We're going to use the magic wand and the quick select. They both happen to share the same spot on the toolbar. So if yours looks like a stick with a snowflake on the end of it, your own magic wand. If you got a brush that's got like a dashed circle around it, you are on the quick selector. Me, I use the quick selection first. I think it is better to go quickly. You can use it, essentially you click and hold and it will select anything with a similar uh, pixel color. It will look for more extreme definitions of lights and darks. So the intent is we'll click and we'll drag along the bottom here, and the tool should be smart enough to stop and identify where things start to get dark or where the lines and things start to change color are. So up here at the top, you got a couple of different options. You can go on a single selection, which if I click once, okay, it's selected this side of the blanket. But if I wanted to continue now, it might not work out. So it worked out down there, but if I go up here now, it gave me a different selection up here. Actually, the reason that it did that is, if you look up here at the top, it actually automatically, it did me a favor, it switched to addition, which is what I was going to tell you to put it on in anyway. So, I don't want this blanket up here, I'm going to use the minus selection. Okay, and that should keep what I have at the bottom actually protected. There we go. I also don't want the baby's arm selected. So I'm going to deselect that arm. Okay. I'm going to go back into addition because I want to finish the rest of this blanket up. Alright, you might be able to get close, you might be able to fudge some of these things. Be careful. Remember, you want the blanket, you don't want the baby's skin. Alright, some areas like that. See, I clicked on there, it took over the whole baby's hand. So, be aware of that, be careful. Okay, oh look, I just happened to get that. Alright. So you can go back and forth, you can play plus and minus. Sometimes, depending on where you click, might make more of a difference, alright? So maybe if you don't put the edge of the circle right on the edge of the thing that you're trying to click on, maybe if you move inward a little bit, might give you more of a different reaction. The other thing that you might try to do is you can change your brush size. That's right here. Now this is these are all adjustments for the paintbrush, which essentially this is a paintbrush, except for we are painting a selection instead of any other color. So you can ignore hardness, spacing, all this stuff down here. The only thing you really got to worry about is size on this one. So again, if you want to try to get in here, you might be able to get some more out of this. But to do your really fine selecting, you need to switch over into the magic wand. All right. So here on the magic wand, same deal up here. I've got my single selection, I've got my additional selection, got my subtraction selection, and I've got this one actually, if any selections are intersecting, it'll end up taking whatever the overlap is. don't worry about that one so much. You're just pretty much going to use addition and subtraction. So again, we already have a selection. Probably want to be on addition. If you go into single selection, it will not try to adjust like the other one did for you. It will definitely just, it'll get rid of the rest of your selection and it'll only select one thing. So if you need to be able to see very specific selections, you can zoom in. If it switches into this mode here where you're seeing like this grid, don't worry about it. That's just a side effect of zooming in. It's actually showing you the breakdown in the individual pixels. If that bugs you, just zoom back out until you don't see it anymore. I think it's most disruptive here in this first stage. If you zoom in even further, I don't think it's as hard on the eyes. Just some people it bugs, some people it doesn't. I'm going to stay zoomed out. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click. And I'm going to slowly add more of a selection to this. Before you start clicking, you might want to adjust your tolerance. By default, your tolerance is probably set to 30. If I click in this area with a tolerance of 30, you can see it went a little bit nuts. What the tolerance is it's the percentage of pixels that are similar to to the pixel that you click on. And the pixel that you are clicking on is actually the very center of the magic wand itself. So wherever the middle of that snowflake is, wherever that clicks, it's copying that one pixel that's underneath there, and it is going to get up to 30% similar to that one. Now this is too much. So I need to undo that magic wand, and I've got to turn my tolerance down. You might start with a tolerance of 15 or something like that. You can see that actually was a bigger jump. But by the time you're done, you might be in the single digits, trying to slowly like chisel and refine what you want your edge to be. If you do go down into 2, or if you do go down into 1 or something like that, you are literally only going to get, if you're on 1, you're only going to get pixels that are the same color as the one that you have selected. So you're going to want to be careful with that. This might be a little bit of trial and error for you guys. It might work out great on the first time, and good for you. You got lucky. But what your goal here is to clean up this edge. So a lot of these edges, they look real close, but to get a really nice edge, we want to make sure that we are right up on that shadow. Now with these being pixels, we're kind of guessing at really where the edge is. And that's where kind of like your artist intuition is going to come into play. Try to clean it up the best you can. If you end up, whenever we change the colors, if you go back and you end up seeing that there are gaps in color along the edge where you can still see a little bit of the pink, or you can see weird edge type things, you're going to have to go back and do this again. So do it right the first time. Go in, do a nice job cleaning up. If you have to switch back into subtraction because you went too far into the skin, do it. Do it now. It's better than having to redo the whole thing. All right. Over here, I'm going to take a look at my blanket. I kind of feel like some of this shadow should still be that upper blanket, so I'm coming back through here. I'm going to reclaim some of that for the upper blanket. Okay. I think that's pretty good. All right, now I'm not gonna waste my time doing this whole thing. I think you guys should be able to figure it out at this point. I want you to go along this edge though, and I want to make sure that you're getting nice and clean edges here. If you have any of the other fingers selected, a lot of people accidentally get this first finger. Make sure that you remove that from the selection. All right, go along the edge here. Make sure everything's clean. All right, I can see some edges on mine where I need to get a little bit more. I should probably subtract a little bit here, a little bit more right here. And lastly, make sure in this dark area, make sure you at least get up into this where it gets a little bit black. It should be blue. You shouldn't see like a hard line of blue right here. You should get that blue all the way up into the black. Check along the blanket. Probably could take a little bit of orange out of my selection. And again, make sure things are clean here. Doesn't hurt to check the bottom edge. Maybe it's not great, but it doesn't hurt. All right. What I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to create a new layer. What I want to do is, now that I have this area selection, it's almost as if I have this area taped off. So I can only manipulate parts of the image that are within these marching ants. So only inside of the ant area. If I were to go now and grab my paintbrush, pick a color, and start painting, well, that's a really big brush, start painting here on the baby's face, nothing would happen. It's only going to happen inside of this brush, and we want that to happen. So we want it to happen inside of the marching ants. So what I'm going to do is create a new layer. On this new layer, I'm going to adjust the opacity. Hopefully you remember about opacity from our Illustrator exercise. I'm going to adjust it down to maybe like 30% for right now. The reason that I'm doing this is I'm going to paint over this with a blue brush, but I don't want to have to repaint the shadows. I don't want to have to repaint the highlights. So my hope is that with this layer being slightly opaque, it will let the lights and darks from underneath shine through this blue, and I will be able to just do one click, paint the whole thing, and be done with it. So with that being said, I want to do one click. The easiest way to do one click is to use a really big brush. I have like a nice size brush right now, but up here I can adjust my brush sizes. We're not going to worry about hardness. We're not going to worry about brush tips. I mean, you could get a really big honking brush for this, okay? And whenever you are ready, you can click and paint. Do it all in one stroke. Move your cursor, and there you go. Blue blanket. It's that simple. You can hit Control D if you're on a PC or Command D on a Mac. It gets rid of the marching ants, and you can see you have a nice blue blanket. If you have some jagged edges, like these here, I wouldn't worry so much about those. But if you see this, and you can see like a darker, and then you're seeing these glyphs of light, these little pieces of light that just really don't look right, or you see an edge like this where it's hard, and then you got, it's a line and it's clearly not anything, you're going to have to do this again. So if I did this around this elbow, around this shadow, around this arm here, I would have you go back and do it again. All right. So again, try to do it nice on the first time. Make sure your selections are good as you go around. Hopefully that won't be a problem. All right. Very good. Good luck.